Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, the coming 3 weeks from May 11th to May 29 unfold like a tightly wound storm of ambition, loyalty, and emotional collisions, where almost nothing goes the way Liam Spencer expects. What begins as a series of carefully laid intentions quickly starts to unravel under pressure from hidden motives and unresolved tensions, setting the stage for shifting alliances and painful choices. Even moments that seem calm on the surface carry an undercurrent of instability, as every character inches closer to decisions that could reshape their futures. Amid all of this, Melissa Dillon Sydney Bullock finds herself standing at a crossroads, facing one final opportunity to repair her fractured friendship with Electra Forrester. At the same time, Steffy Forrester Finnegan prepares for what feels like an inevitable and explosive showdown with Brooke Logan Forrester, as long-standing rivalry edges toward a breaking point. During the week of May 11th to May 15th, Donna Logan Forrester steps into the chaos with a determined attempt to restore peace, trying to smooth over rising tensions before they spiral further out of control. She works tirelessly to steer Katie Logan Spencer away from the idea of hiring Hope Logan Spencer, believing that this decision could shift the balance at Forrester Creations in unpredictable ways. Yet, Hope is already emotionally and strategically leaning towards staying, unwilling to completely step away from her place at the company. Even after Liam Spencer delivers a tempting and persuasive pitch meant to pull her away, Hope refuses to surrender hope for the future, holding tightly to her vision and refusing to let it fade without a fight. Her resolve remains strong as she stays within Forrester Creations, determined to see whether she can still reshape her destiny from within the company's walls. At the same time, Hope is quietly banking on a much larger shift in power, believing that Brooke Logan Forrester could ultimately secure Steffy's co-CEO position. In Hope's mind, if Brooke stands beside Ridge Forrester at the top of the company, it would open the door for her fashion line to be revived and finally thrive the way she always envisioned. But that hope is built on fragile ground because Steffy is firmly opposed to the idea of Brooke stepping into her role, viewing it as a direct threat to everything she has worked to protect. When Ridge Forrester brings up Brooke's suggestion, the tension rises sharply, and Steffy immediately pushes back, warning that Brooke will not take her position, and insisting her father must understand the consequences of even entertaining the idea. This growing conflict between Steffy and Brooke begins to cast a long shadow over the future of Forrester Creations. Meanwhile, a quieter but no less dangerous storyline unfolds, as Remy Price manages to slip past security once again at Forrester Creations, moving through the building like a shadow no one fully notices until it is too late. From the doorway of the design office, he watches silently as Dylan and Electra Forrester share an emotional embrace, signaling what appears to be a fragile step toward reconciliation. Electra seems ready to offer Dylan the fresh start she has been desperately hoping for, allowing a moment of healing to finally take shape between them. But Remy's presence lingers like a dark cloud over this fragile peace, as his emotions begin to shift in a far more unsettling direction. His desperation grows sharper, and what began as a request for connection with Dylan slowly transforms into something more dangerous, edging toward blackmail that could destroy Dylan's chance at rebuilding trust with Electra. As the story moves into the week of May 18th to May 22nd, the pressure intensifies across every storyline, and control starts slipping through the characters' fingers. Remy Price's behavior becomes increasingly unstable, and his growing desperation pushes him toward a darker path where manipulation replaces negotiation. He begins to realize that Dylan's connection to Electra could be used as leverage, and he threatens to expose everything if he does not get what he wants. This puts Dylan in an impossible position, forcing her into a corner where she may have no choice but to comply with his demands. In a devastating twist, she could even be pressured into orchestrating a reunion between Remy and Deke Sharp, with Harrison Cohn's character pulled back into the chaos under threat rather than choice. What once felt like a chance at healing now becomes a dangerous game of control and survival. At the same time, Ridge Forrester finds himself increasingly torn between two powerful forces pulling him in opposite directions. On one side is Brooke Logan Forrester, who pushes for change and influence at the highest level of the company, and on the other is Steffy Forrester Finnegan, who refuses to let her position be threatened. Ridge struggles with the weight of both perspectives, unable to fully satisfy either side without risking serious fallout. The tension builds toward a critical question of whether he will call a formal meeting, potentially allowing the entire leadership structure of Forrester Creations to be decided by vote. As this possibility looms, it becomes clear that a major confrontation between Steffy and Brooke is inevitable, one that could define the future direction of the company and fracture relationships beyond repair. By the week of May 25th to May 29, the emotional stakes climb even higher as Remy's reckless behavior continues to put Dylan in increasingly dangerous situations. His constant sneaking and refusal to back down create a series of close calls that threaten to expose everything at the worst possible moment. Each encounter pushes the tension closer to a breaking point, where discovery feels not just possible, but inevitable. At the same time, Daphne Rose Walton offers Dylan an unexpected opportunity by bringing her in as her assistant, creating a new environment where trust and secrets begin to intertwine. As they spend more time together, Daphne starts to uncover hints of Dylan's complicated connection to Remy, and she may ultimately choose to keep that knowledge hidden rather than reveal it. This hidden understanding adds another layer of tension, as silence becomes its own form of power within the unfolding drama. However, Daphne's own emotional world begins to fracture as she faces devastating news about infertility, a revelation that leaves her future uncertain and deeply painful. In the midst of this personal struggle, an unexpected idea begins to surface, where Dylan might one day step in as a surrogate for Daphne and Carter Walton, offering a possibility of hope emerging from loss. This potential connection hints at a future where broken circumstances could lead to unexpected bonds, reshaping relationships in ways no one can yet predict. As all these storylines converge, the emotional intensity of The Bold and the Beautiful continues to rise, promising even more dramatic twists ahead. The stage is set for a wave of revelations, confrontations, and irreversible choices that will leave no character untouched as the drama pushes forward. As the pressure builds beyond the end of May 25 to 29, the emotional air inside The Bold and the Beautiful grows heavier, almost suffocating in the way every character seems to be standing on the edge of something irreversible. Nothing feels stable anymore, as if every conversation carries the weight of consequences that are just one step away from exploding into full chaos. Dylan finds herself caught deeper in Remy's tightening grip, where every attempt to move forward with Electra Forrester feels increasingly fragile and at risk of collapsing at any moment. What once looked like a hopeful path toward forgiveness now feels like a narrow bridge suspended over uncertainty, where even a single misstep could send everything crashing down. The emotional toll begins to show, not just in her decisions, but in the quiet hesitation that lingers behind every interaction she has. Remy, meanwhile, becomes more unpredictable as his desperation reshapes him into someone driven less by emotion and more by control. His need to hold on to leverage over Dylan turns every encounter into a calculated move, as though he is constantly watching for the exact moment to tighten his hold. The secrecy of his presence around Forrester Creations begins to feel less like stealth and more like inevitability, as if he is destined to be discovered at the worst possible time. Each time he slips through unnoticed, the risk grows sharper, and the tension builds toward a breaking point that no one seems able to stop. The audience can feel the instability growing, as though the entire situation is balanced on the edge of exposure. At Forrester Creations, the emotional battlefield between Steffy Forrester Finnegan and Brooke Logan Forrester reaches new levels of intensity, as neither woman shows any willingness to step back from what she believes is rightfully hers. Steffy stands firm in her belief that the co-CEO position represents not just authority, but protection of the company's legacy and stability. Brooke, on the other hand, is fueled by conviction that her vision alongside Ridge Forrester could bring a new era of success and creativity to the fashion house. Every conversation between them feels like a collision of history, pride, and deeply rooted resentment, where even small words carry enormous weight. Ridge remains trapped in the middle of this emotional storm, increasingly burdened by the realization that his next decision could permanently alter family dynamics and professional loyalties. As Ridge struggles privately with this impossible position, the idea of a formal decision begins to take shape more seriously, with the possibility of a meeting where leadership could be decided collectively. The thought of a vote introduces an entirely new level of unpredictability, as alliances within Forrester Creations may shift instantly depending on personal loyalty, ambition, or fear of change. Ridge understands that such a moment would not only determine the future of the company, but also redefine relationships that have taken years to build and fracture. The weight of this responsibility presses down on him, creating a sense of isolation even when surrounded by family and colleagues. Every option feels like a loss in some form, no matter which direction he leans toward. Meanwhile, the fragile emotional connection between Dylan and Electra Forrester continues to hang in a delicate balance, where trust is slowly being rebuilt, but never fully secured. Electra's willingness to offer Dylan a fresh start feels genuine, yet it exists under a shadow that neither of them can fully ignore. There is an unspoken awareness that secrets are still nearby, waiting to surface at the wrong moment and undo everything they are trying to repair. Dylan tries to embrace the opportunity for change, but the constant pressure from Remy makes every step forward feel uncertain. Even moments of calm carry a quiet tension, as if the peace they are experiencing is only temporary. Daphne Rose Walton's presence adds another layer of complexity to this unfolding web, as her decision to bring Dylan closer as her assistant opens unexpected doors for connection and discovery. Through their growing professional relationship, subtle truths begin to surface, and Daphne slowly starts to sense that Dylan's past is more complicated than it appears on the surface. This awareness creates an unspoken tension between them, where trust and curiosity begin to blur together in subtle but meaningful ways. At the same time, Daphne's personal heartbreak regarding her infertility diagnosis continues to deepen, casting a long emotional shadow over her every decision. The pain of that reality lingers quietly, shaping her perspective on everything she touches. Within that emotional space, the possibility of Dylan stepping into a surrogate role for Daphne and Carter Walton begins to emerge not as a certainty, but as a fragile idea born from shared vulnerability and unexpected circumstance. It is a concept filled with emotional complexity, carrying both hope and uncertainty in equal measure. Such a path would not only redefine their relationship, but also intertwine their lives in ways none of them can fully anticipate. The weight of this possibility sits quietly beneath the surface of their interactions, waiting for the moment when it can no longer remain unspoken. Every glance and conversation seems to carry hints of something larger forming beneath the surface. As all of these intertwined stories continue to unfold, the world of the bold and the beautiful moves closer to a convergence point where secrets, power struggles, and emotional decisions are all set to collide. The sense of inevitability grows stronger with each passing moment, as if every character is being drawn toward a single dramatic intersection. Nothing feels random anymore, as every choice begins to echo into multiple storylines at once. The tension is no longer just about individual conflicts, but about how all of them will erupt together when the fragile balance finally breaks. And as that moment approaches, the only certainty is that everything is about to change in ways no one is fully prepared for. As the final stretch of May unfolds within the bold and the beautiful, The emotional tension that has been quietly tightening across every storyline begins to sharpen into something far more volatile. The sense of control that characters once believed they had starts slipping further away, replaced by uncertainty and choices that feel increasingly irreversible. Liam Spencer's expectations, which once guided certain decisions and conversations, now feel misaligned with reality as events continue to spiral in unexpected directions. What he thought would be straightforward begins to fracture under the weight of competing desires and hidden agendas. Around him, every connection seems to be shifting, as if the ground beneath each relationship is slowly rewriting itself. At Forrester Creations, Ridge Forrester finally reaches a breaking point in his internal struggle, no longer able to simply carry the burden of balancing Brooke Logan Forrester and Steffy Forrester Finnegan's opposing visions. The emotional pressure of trying to satisfy both women while preserving the stability of the company becomes too heavy to ignore. As tensions rise, the idea of a formal decision begins to feel less like an option and more like an unavoidable necessity. The possibility of a meeting where leadership could be decided collectively looms larger than ever, forcing everyone involved to confront what they truly value most: loyalty, power, or legacy. Ridge's silence, once a form of control, now becomes its own source of tension as others begin demanding clarity. When the long-awaited confrontation between Steffy and Brooke finally escalates, it unfolds not as a single explosive moment, but as a layered emotional collision built from years of rivalry and unresolved resentment. Steffy stands unwavering, defending her role and her belief that the company's future depends on protecting its current structure. Brooke, equally determined, refuses to step back from what she believes is a vision of renewal and progress alongside Ridge. Every word exchanged between them carries the weight of history, turning their argument into something far deeper than a business dispute. It becomes a battle over identity, influence, and the right to shape the future of an empire they both refuse to surrender. Elsewhere, the situation surrounding Dylan, Electra Forrester, and Remy Price reaches an increasingly dangerous level of instability. Remy's presence, once hidden in the shadows, begins to feel more invasive and harder to control, as if his desperation is pushing him closer to making irreversible moves. Dylan's attempts to rebuild trust with Electra continue under constant pressure, with every step forward shadowed by the threat of exposure. The emotional fragility of her situation becomes more apparent as she realizes that even small mistakes could trigger consequences she cannot undo. Electra, still offering her a chance at renewal, remains unaware of just how close the fragile piece is to collapsing. Remy's behavior reaches a critical turning point as his desperation transforms into something more dangerous and calculated. What once felt like emotional pleading now evolves into a strategic threat, where control becomes his primary objective. The possibility of exposing Dylan's past connection to him hangs over every interaction like a weapon waiting to be used. Dylan, cornered emotionally and psychologically, begins to feel the full weight of his manipulation, where every choice is no longer freely made, but carefully constrained by fear. The idea of forcing a reunion involving Remy and Deke Sharp becomes not just a demand, but a form of coercion that threatens to unravel multiple relationships at once. As all of this intensifies, Daphne Rose Walton continues to step further into Dylan's world through their growing professional relationship. But what begins as mentorship slowly evolves into something more layered and complex. Daphne's emotional vulnerability, shaped by her infertility struggle, deepens her sensitivity to the people around her, making her more observant than she initially appears. The idea of Dylan becoming a potential surrogate for her and Carter Walton lingers in the background like an unspoken possibility, adding emotional weight to every shared interaction. It is not yet a decision, but rather a fragile concept shaped by shared pain, hope, and uncertainty. Each conversation between them now carries subtle undercurrents that neither fully acknowledges aloud. Meanwhile, Ridge's internal conflict finally pushes toward a critical turning point as he considers calling a formal meeting that could allow the future leadership of Forrester Creations to be determined by collective decision. This possibility sends shockwaves through the emotional dynamics of the company, as it introduces uncertainty into what was once considered stable hierarchy. The idea forces everyone to reassess alliances, motivations, and long-term loyalties in a way that cannot easily be undone. No one is certain how such a decision would unfold, but everyone understands that it would permanently reshape the balance of power. The tension surrounding this potential vote becomes almost unbearable, as anticipation builds toward a moment that could redefine everything. In the background of all these converging storylines, Liam's expectations continue to collapse quietly as reality diverges further from what he anticipated. The outcomes he imagined for Hope Logan Spencer, Brooke, and even Steffy no longer align with the unpredictable direction events have taken. Instead of resolution, he is left watching a world where every attempt to stabilize relationships only seems to introduce new complications. This growing disconnect between expectation and reality reinforces the emotional unpredictability that now defines every corner of the narrative. Nothing is following a clean path anymore, and every assumption is being challenged. As the final days of May approach, the entire landscape of the bold and the beautiful feels like it is building toward an emotional rupture that cannot be delayed much longer. Every storyline, whether rooted in corporate power struggles, fractured friendships, or deeply personal secrets, now appears to be converging toward a shared moment of reckoning. The characters are no longer simply reacting to events. They are being pulled toward them, as if drawn by forces they can no longer resist. And as the pressure reaches its peak, one truth becomes unavoidable. Whatever happens next will not just shift relationships, but permanently redefine the emotional fabric of their world.